from a young age, that winning mentality was sort of implanted in myself. There was never any pressure from mum or dad to do well or succeed, but I wanted to do well and succeed for them and for myself in the end.
This is Legends with Bevo, thanks to Odyssey, Renelec Electrical Services, and Anytime Fitness Glenelg. And now, here's your host, Bevo.
Jett Kenny, welcome to Legends with Bevo. It's great to have you on for a chat, mate. How are you going over there in sunny Queensland?
Yeah, no, thanks for having me first and foremost. But no, definitely can't complain. We've got a light southerly that's come through today. So I actually woke up this morning and put a jumper on my way to training. But that was quickly changed when the sun came out. No, definitely can't complain about the weather. I do like it when it's a bit windy and a bit messy out there in the ocean. It keeps the temperature down as well, which is nice.
Yeah, that's pretty rare for you to say you have to wear a jumper in Queensland. What? It must be something going on with climate change over there, mate.
Oh, I know. I mean, it's what everyone's talking about. But no, I had a wedding in Stanthorpe on the weekend, and it got down to, I think it was 8 degrees overnight. So I was fully rugged up, slept in the back of the car, and it was weird having to put a hoodie on and go to bed with a hoodie on and a couple of blankets and whatnot all over again. At the moment, I've got the fan on and one sheet keeping me going at night. So the warmer definitely hitting us, that's for sure.
Yeah, not too far away for sure before it starts to really heat up. But speaking of heating up, we'll get things started now with this chat. And this first segment is What Were You Thinking? Now, Jett, tell us about your pre-race meeting, I should say, before an Ironman race. Did you have a go-to song like an Eye of the Tiger or something you used to listen to before you did your Ironman races or before you do races now?
It's weird because I don't usually listen to music at the best of times. I do when I do gym or something like that. But if anyone asked me what my favorite band was or anything like that, I don't know, it just depends on my mood. So I can't actually say that I listen to music while I'm competing. Maybe if I have a bad race, I'll go and put my headphones on and sort of zone out so I don't have to talk to anyone. But I didn't have a specific song that came to mind because I'd play music over the PA systems and I'd always get the annoying ones stuck in my head. And I remember middle of the race being out there trying to focus and whatnot, and I'd have the same lyrics stuck in my head. I'm like, what of all songs, it'd be like It's a Small World After All, just playing on repeat. Going a little bit stir crazy. Sometimes you just get stuck with the bad ones.
That's hilarious. I go to the gym as well, and one of those things that I've found in recent years is when you go to the gym and you basically don't have your own music. You forget your headphones and you have to listen to the music on that they're playing. And you're right, they're just playing all like weird music that you can't even get motivated to. So I totally get it, mate.
Yeah, I remember there was always one song that they used to play at every carnival, like on repeat, and they used to mash the hell out of it. It was Warrior by someone, and it was just. That just became the theme song of every surf carnival, was just that one song. So, I mean, sometimes there's some decent music, but other times it's a bit hit and miss.
You just got to go with the flow and just focus on your race.
Yeah, that's it.
This next segment is big failures and what you've learned, Jett. Now, obviously, we spoke about you being a professional Ironman. We've seen you recently doing great things on SAS Australia, which we'll get to a bit later on. You're also a model. You're a lifeguard. You've been on Ninja Warrior. You've been on Dancing with the Stars. The real full Monty. I don't know if there's anything you haven't been on. Do you remember the first real big fail you experienced, whether it was in a race or what it might have been, and how did that make you feel? And how did you get past those failures?
I guess the biggest failure that I remember, with competing was I think I was maybe under 11s at state titles, and it was the Ironman race at Kirra in the final, and a bit of swell and a bit of a half decent sweep, and to the point where I got hammered so long on the back bank that I ended up almost at whatever the next beach down was at that point. I can't remember where we were racing. It was either Kirra or North Kirra, but I ended up about 500 metres, 600 metres down the beach. And I finally got out. I started paddling back up the beach, and the IRBs come over and told us there was myself and another guy to go in, basically, because we were so far behind. Obviously, I didn't want to, but I don't know. I've come in and walking up the beach, I'm in tears because they've dragged me out of the race, and that photo of me, mum and dad walking up the beach in tears ended up making the back page of the paper the next day as an 11-year-old crying up the beach. But it was funny because they cancelled the race not because we were so far behind, or they didn't just cancel it for us, but no one could actually swim back against the current. So they cancelled it for everyone. It wasn't just me. So we had another go about half an hour later once everyone sort of had a bit of time to rest again, and they ran the course in reverse. And so it was almost like you had that failure, but then you had to sort of switch on and go again. But as an 11-year-old, I don't know, it's kind of hard to do as well. I guess in a way that, I mean, I guess it is hard and it isn't hard, because in a way you're not old enough to sort of understand what was going on, and you didn't have those sort of mental blanks and sort of barriers up from your last failure. I guess it was just a matter of being like, okay, I get to race again. And went out the next race and was absolutely killing it. Was winning by about 100 meters, and I missed the swim can. Dad was like, all right, just swim past the swim can, and then once you get past it, then turn and go down with it, because the sweep was so strong. And I missed it by about half a meter, and I couldn't get back to the can. And I was at that can for about, I don't know, what seemed like forever, and I ended up coming last anyway. But I just remember running up the beach laughing. So it was funny how the race before, walking up the beach crying, to the next race coming up the beach laughing, like same position, or 16th in the same spot, and just polar opposites.
And do you think from there that sort of drove you to be more successful and have success in Ironman with those failures that you had as a young fella?
I mean, I guess sport's always a good one for that. I played soccer a lot when I was growing up. I don't know, no one ever wants to lose, but when you lose in soccer, you lose as a team. Surf life saving is a bit different. It's much more of an individual sport. You take a lot more out of a loss than you do out of a win. You learn a lot more about yourself and what you could have done better and differently. Yeah, I don't know. I think from that point, or even from before that, I set my standards very high, and I always wanted to win. Thankfully, I was very fortunate with who my parents were, and I was a bit genetically blessed as a younger child, and didn't really have to. Well, I still trained a lot, and I still trained very hard, but it got to the point where I sort of dropped off on my training a little bit, and other people sort of caught up, and it got to the point where the natural sort of, I don't know, the natural side of things and the gene side of things sort of fell off, and the hard work and effort kind of took over, and went from winning a lot of races to sort of battling at sort of around not the mid pack, but still up the front. And then it wasn't until then where I realized I really had to knuckle down and put the hard work in. And yeah, the next few years I was back in the same position I was in the younger ages, just back up the front, winning like I wanted to. I mean, the ocean's a funny one. It doesn't always go your way. You could be the best out there and the fittest and the strongest, but if a wave wants to smack you in the face, it's going to smack you in the face. So there's not a whole lot you can do about it. I'm not Moses. I can't part the sea, and unfortunately anyway. So, but yeah, I think, from a young age, I sort of set my standards very high, and that's how I live my life. So I wouldn't change it for anything.
It's a great attitude, mate, and I know exactly what it's like. I've never got to the same level as you, but I used to bodyboard a lot as a kid and body surf, and I just remember getting dumps on so many occasions. It's not a good feeling. So that's by waves, not by girls, by the way. Yeah, it's definitely a tough one there. So interesting as well, just a question without notice. I've always wanted to know this, how you went at school, and whether there was sort of any pressure, or did you sort of cop it much from schoolmates, being such a high profile young fella, having your mum as Lisa and your dad as Grant?
Yeah, I mean, myself and both my sisters, we all got bullied at school for who our parents were, and it was weird. It was weird for me because I never saw them as anything more than just my parents. I understood what they did and how they'd been to the Olympics, and they were very good at sport, but I'd never seen them as like anyone famous, I guess, in that perspective. Yeah, I don't know. It was funny. I mean, they're just kind of the things we dealt with growing up as kids. I copped it, more so at school than anything else, but it's school. Like, if I let a few bad days affect me here and there, then that's on me, I guess. Nowadays you put it into perspective, and very fortunate to be in the position that I am and that we were at school. Like some kids didn't get to go to school. Some kids didn't have those opportunities and whatnot. So it's all about perspective, and there's always people out there doing it worse than you. So if I have a bad day and something's not going right, or someone says something that they want to say and I don't agree with it, then look, that's going to happen. But again, I can't let that affect me forever.
Yeah, great attitude, mate. Well done. Now, this next segment is called When the Going Gets Tough, the Tough Gets Winning. What was the first real big success you ever felt, Jett? Like, say, back when you were a kid, how did that make you feel? And do you think it set you on the path to being a professional Ironman?
Yeah, I guess I'd sort of go off my under 15 years. I put a lot of hard work into more so my board paddling than anything. I was never really a great swimmer. I was an okay swimmer, but under 15s, I think I lost 4 board races all year. One of them, I remember one of my best mates now, he beat me up the beach. He jagged me on a wave and he beat me in a sprint on the beach. So, but that happens in surf. And I remember going to state titles, and I ended up winning the board race by about 50, 60 meters. And it was great, you know, when you just get on that winning sort of mentality and that you carry that momentum forward, and it's like the saying, winners win. And yeah, it is hard when you get stuck in a bit of a rut and you start to fall off your sort of expectations and your pace and whatnot. But it's a matter of trying to drag yourself out of there. And I think the good guys or the top level athletes and just top people in life are really good at that, whether they do have a hard moment and a sort of a rut or a downtime in their life, to pull themselves back out of that and to get going again, back to that sort of winning mentality. So yeah, I think for me, under 15s was the year that I knew that I could do it. There was a lot of hard work that was put in, and it sort of showed. All my hard work really paid off. And again, in the only a couple of years ago, sort of got back into board paddling more so, and I ended up winning our summer series. And it's funny, both of those years where I was at the top level of board paddling, nationals got cancelled on both those years. So it was unfortunate that I didn't get to go to nationals and potentially win a national title. But yeah, look, those things happen, and unfortunate circumstances around the first one, and the second one was just called off because of bad weather. Again, racing the ocean, can't always control what we're doing, but yeah, I think from a young age, that winning mentality was sort of implanted in myself. There was never any pressure from mum or dad to do well or succeed, but I wanted to do well and succeed for them and for myself in the end. So
that's so good of your parents to be like that. And actually, that was going to be my next question. Now I'm in the big time, because looking back now, your first ever professional Ironman race, you know, do you remember that and say what was your fondest memory of that particular race? And you mentioned just then about your parents not sort of providing that extra pressure on you, which is wonderful. But was there that extra pressure from the outside, you know, the media, and knowing that you were Jett Kenny, the son of Lisa Curry and Grant Kenny?
Yeah, I guess that was always the case. I mean, growing up, I was never just Jett. I was always Jett Kenny. Like I said, even at school, I never was just Jett. And it's the same nowadays. I'm not just Jett, I'm Jett Kenny. The last name's always sort of been associated with me, and whether a stigma comes with that or not, I mean, who knows? But yeah, mum and dad never put any pressure on myself or my sisters to sort of follow in their footsteps and go down the same path they did. I mean, we all did nippers as kids, which I think everyone should. It's good for your safety when you're in the ocean and learning how to swim. I feel like it's just one of those things that, especially living on the Sunshine Coast, you kind of want to do, because now I can happily say I can go to the ocean probably anywhere in the world and be safe or understand the conditions. I'm not going to go walk out into the desert or the jungle because I don't understand those environments at all, unless I get some information from someone or have a guide or something like that. And being a lifeguard, I really see that some people just sort of take the ocean for granted. They think they can swim, they walk in, next thing you know, their arms up in the air needing assistance. I think for mum and dad, they never put any pressure on us at all. I almost went down the road of playing soccer instead of surf life saving, but I was doubling up with both of them for so long. I don't know, surf life saving for me, being on the coast is just sort of like second nature. It's a second home. I live on the water and I train every afternoon. And when the off season comes, you enjoy the first few days off, and after that, you sort of fall out of a routine and you kind of miss it in the end. So no, it's good. And you know, like I said, mum and dad never put any pressure on us. They just wanted us to succeed in whatever we wanted to do. So nothing but love and support from them for whatever we wanted.
And going back to, you know, when you did your first ever Ironman race, when you actually won your first ever race, what that feeling was like, Jett? Do you remember? And you know, did it sort of give you a real jubilation and relief that you won your first race after all the hard work that you put in as well? Yeah,
I think it's funny because, like, talking about Ironman racing, like I'm more of just I've always also been just a board and ski paddler over the last few years. I've always sort of dabbled in Ironman racing, but I've been out of the pool now for, probably 8 years, I think it is, from swimming consistently, and I'm only back at it now. And God, you forget how hard swimming is, but
you're not wrong.
I remember it's death. The 4 a.m. wake ups and then in the pool at 5, and there's 6 to 7K sets. They're no fun. But
yeah,
I think the most memorable Ironman win, I mean, it wasn't anything massive by any means, but I was under 19s at a Dickey Beach Carnival, so nothing too major. But I remember having just a really good race, and swimming is not my strongest leg, and I actually had a pretty good swim. And then I won the 19s as a first year 19, and then went back the next year and won it again in the same race. And then I ended up going into the open race after that and ended up third in that as well. So it wasn't, I mean, I wouldn't say any Ironman races really stood out for me more so. It was more probably like the board and ski races where I knew I put together a really good race, sort of dug in and did what I had to get the win.
And in terms of, I guess, like with your swimming, you mentioned it before that you've started to sort of get back into that and you're doing the 4 a.m. starts, which I 100% credit you for that. Is there any sort of ambitions of potentially, you're still only a young guy, is there potential of going to Paris or future Olympics as well? Is that something you might just purely focus on swimming and being like your mum?
Yeah, it's funny because everyone, I feel like a lot of people watch the Olympics and then they're like, you know what? I'm going to train for this. I'm going to knuckle down and I'm going to make the next Olympics. And look, the people who are in the Olympic team at the moment are incredible athletes. Like, they dedicate their lives to those sports. And I mean, I'm someone who swims 4 times a week. Some of those guys are doing 4 sessions in a day and a half almost. They swim mornings and nights every single day. Look, I'd love to say that I might have the potential to knuckle down. And I mean, I'm 26 now.
Still young.
Yeah, I mean, still young in some regard. A lot of the people coming through now are quite young and they're incredible athletes. And I feel like the older I get, the shorter the distance is going to be. So I feel like we've got a few fast twitch fibers in me still. So who knows? Maybe a 50 or maybe 100 relay spot could be on the cards. But yeah, that'll be one for maybe next year when I've done a bit more swimming and I can sort of maybe put my mindset there at the same time. But at the same time, who knows, I could venture over into kayaking and try and get into the sprint side of things. And if worse comes to worse, my granddad's Irish on mum's side, so maybe I'll have to get an Irish passport and take the cheat road out and try and make it for not Australia but for Ireland. But who knows? Probably didn't even make the team there. So
wouldn't that be interesting?
I
don't know if your parents would be too happy about that, mate.
There's talks of surf life saving potentially being an Olympic sort of trial event in Paris, and then if that does well, then in the years to come after that, and then you're looking at Brisbane. But 32 in Brisbane, I'll be 36. So I feel like there'll be a new generation that's come through. But who knows? Maybe Ireland could need a 36-year-old ski paddler or an Ironman at that stage. I mean, you can never really tell what's going to happen in the next few years. I feel like there's more sports and everything that do get added to the Olympics, and they are trying to change it up. And fingers crossed that surf life saving becomes an Olympic sport. But I think before that, I think surf life saving just needs to grow in itself. The path that it's on at the moment is quite good. We've got a good base behind the sport and a lot of good sponsors getting into it, and a lot of support, which is nice because it sort of died off there for a while. It'd be good to see it get back to what it was back in the heydays when Dad and everyone was racing, but I don't think it'll ever get back to that.
Oh, they were the greatest days, mate, growing up. I'm a little bit older than you, growing up as a kid. Yeah, watching Guy Leach, your dad, those sort of people compete is unbelievable. So, yeah.
Fingers crossed to get there, but I don't think it will.
Yes, exactly. Now, the next segment is Starstruck Celebrities. Bit of a mouthful. Now, obviously, you've met some amazing people on the way, Jett. Who was the most famous person you ever met, though? It doesn't have to necessarily be a sports person. It could be an actor, actress, musician, comedian. Tell us who that was and that experience.
There's a photo on our fridge of Dad and Michael Jackson. And
what?
I think Dad was traveling America at the time for surf life saving, and Michael Jackson actually came up to Dad and said, "You're that Ironman guy, aren't you?" and got a photo with Dad. So it was the opposite way around. Michael Jackson got a photo with Dad. Like that's the level that the sport was back in the day, and that's the sort of credibility it had back then. And they were on Baywatch and they did all that and met David Hasselhoff, whereas I'm out here and I'm like, oh yeah, I've met Grant Kenny.
That's a great story. Might have to get your dad on to talk about that now. Brilliant. Now, the next segment is called Getting Out of Your Comfort Zone. Now, we spoke about this earlier, Jett. You've been on the real full Monty, and you've got a great rig, which the whole world's envious of, let's be honest. What was that experience so like, getting your gear off in front of all those people and basically in front of the whole world with a great cause, of course?
Yeah, I mean, and that's how I looked at it. I was like, look, it's for a good cause. Obviously, everyone has their insecurities about their body, and I definitely do. I'm no different to you or the next guy or the next girl. And Yeah, it was just, I mean, for me, it was more so doing the dancing part than anything else. I'm a terrible dancer, and it absolutely petrifies me to be up on stage. I don't know how I did Dancing with the Stars. Well, I did it terribly. I do know how I did it. Yeah, I think it was just the fact that it was for such a good cause got me through it, and being there with the other, I think it was with the other 8 guys or 9 guys. I can't remember how many of us there were, but we were just in it together, basically. So that made it a lot easier, which was really nice. But like you said, it was for a good cause. So it sort of came back to that, and I take it back to put it into perspective. And if that's the worst part of my day or my life, then that's not too bad compared to what some people are going through and have been through.
Yeah, well said. Was there some big nerves though going onto the stage?
Oh yeah, it was that 3 minutes or whatever it was. I can't remember how long we were up there, but that entire time is a blur. Like, I cannot tell you anything that happened during that point, except for at the end where the one firework that was in front of me didn't go off straight away. Oh, cool. I was like, there you go, everyone. But, those things happen sometimes. And, yeah, like I said, if that's the worst thing to happen, then I'm not going too bad, hey?
Yeah, exactly. So I used to actually do a bit of work at Hens Nights back in the day, mate. Not as a stripper, but as a new drawing model. So I remember my very first gig. I was petrified, but like you said, once you sort of get on there and just do your thing, it's just you just become so much more relaxed, and it's not as bad as what people think. And I've done heaps from now. It's heaps of fun and met so many great people along the way. So
just a bit. And that's what you said. It's about being comfortable. And the first time you do anything, you're never comfortable doing it. So unless you're sleeping. The more you do it, the more comfortable you get. And the first time's always a bit nerve-wracking, but good on you, I guess.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Yeah. Got to pay the bill somehow, right?
Bigger balls than I do.
No, mate, I haven't done it in front of the whole world. That's just next level. So.
No, you never know. You never know who's...
All right, the next segment is called Taste of Regret, Jett. So this one is to do with basically, everyone has a food regret. I can't stand seafood, I eat some seafood, but most of it I can't really stand. But obviously we saw you on SAS Australia, you weren't much of a fan of the food, which I don't blame you. And I think your mum told me as well that there was some seafood on the menu. And did you sort of feel as though if you had eaten a proper meal, you would have made it to the end, like that very last stage, because you actually openly admitted that you were running on empty a bit?
I don't want to say that one meal may have made the entire difference, but in my head, I mean, I don't eat seafood. I've had a bad reaction to it once, and I don't eat it. So I went in there, they knew that I didn't eat seafood, and one of the other girls in there didn't eat red meat, so she got chicken every single night. So I was just a little annoyed that there was no food alternative for me the night that there was seafood. I guess it's a different situation when I left, and I was talking to the medic, and he's like, well, look, if you're in a war zone and there's the only thing you can eat is fish, then you're probably going to force it down. And I said, yeah, I mean, you're probably right, but at the same time, I wasn't in a war zone. And I mean, the oats and whatnot were difficult for me to eat. I have a terrible gag reflex, and I almost vomited every single morning trying to eat them. It got to the point where I couldn't afford to vomit because everyone was running on empty at that point. But if I did vomit, I would have lost more than I was taking in. So I had to sort of make that decision then and there to sort of eat what I could without it coming back up. Yeah, the last night before I left, there was fish for dinner, and I didn't eat. I mean, I don't eat fish, so I didn't eat that dinner. Everyone was nice enough to give me a bit of their sweet potato that we had as well. And so I pretty much just had sweet potato, and I think it was zucchini for dinner. And I woke up the next day and I just mentally switched off, and it was annoying because we got back, and when we got back we went straight to lunch, and I didn't even give myself that attempt to go to have lunch and see if I could reset from there. I'd already told myself that I was done on the drive back, and I mean, I was pretty sneaky about how I did it. Everyone ran off. I just stayed behind, and no one actually saw me stay behind. And Heath Shaw actually said that if he saw me there, he would have ran over and grabbed me because on the show, him and I, we sort of bonded quite well. And him and I feel like we're quite the same in the way we approach things. I feel like if he had told me to pull my head in and pulled me off that parade square, I would have been there for a lot longer. And same with him. I mean, he ended up leaving later that day at the end of the challenge. And I feel like if I was there, I would have pulled his head in. Yeah, it may have been a different story. I feel like him and I could have potentially gone to the end. And in my head, end goal was always the case. But I mean, turns out I got beaten by a piece of fish. So that's
when you love the ocean, how ironic as well.
I know. If I don't eat them, then they're going to eat me. So
Yeah.
I hope they respect that.
And how did you find the overall experience of SAS, mate?
Oh, I loved it. I loved every second of it. I mean, there was times there where I didn't want to be there, and you sit back and you think about what's going on in the outside world. And it was unfortunate that it ran at the same time as my national title. So I spent the first week sitting in the back of those trucks, traveling, just being like, oh, I could be doing this race right now, or I could be doing that race right now. Just wondering how everyone was going. So yeah, it was kind of hard to sit back and understand what I was missing out on, because I trained for 8-9 months of the year for this event and got cancelled because of COVID the year before. And the year before that, I was on Dancing with the Stars and broke my collarbone 4 months before that as well. So I didn't really have a proper season. So it's been a while since I've done a proper national titles, and I'm looking forward to sort of diving into training and having a red hot crack. But no, if I had the opportunity to do it again, SAS again, I 100% would. I loved it. Like, I got to experience so many things I never would do otherwise. And just the whole environment of trying to push yourself physically and mentally, I love that kind of stuff. And yeah, like there's days there where you're running on empty and your body is aching and you're just like, oh, I could be at home. Just you sit in the car thinking about having a beer and a nachos or something like that. You go back and you've got some porridge and one hard boiled egg, and it's like, oh, cool, like just what I felt like. But yeah, I would 100% do it again if given the opportunity. And look, fingers crossed they have I'm not going to say an all-stars one, because I wouldn't consider myself an all-star, but a returning one. And fingers crossed that I get put into the hat for that mix of people who may get to return. So I loved it. I loved it.
You're a modest man, mate. You've been on, as I mentioned before, Dancing with the Stars, now SAS Australia, the real full Monty. I think you've definitely got celebrity status there. So
I don't know. I consider myself a lifeguard, and it's funny when you meet people and they're like, oh, what do you do for work? Or even my Instagram, because people are like, oh, why am I verified on Instagram? And I mean, I just say I'm just a very good lifeguard, obviously. But no, I mean, I don't see myself as anything more, like anyone else. I just consider myself a lifeguard and just your everyday person. So that's who I am. I mean, I collect Pokemon cards. My laptop is currently sitting on 2 stacks of Pokemon cards right now. So.
That is gold. No, I love your attitude, mate. There should be more people in the world like Jett Kenny for sure. Hey, before I let you go, just on a bit of a sour note, this final segment is called "It's Okay to Not Be Okay." Now we know, obviously, mental health is such a big thing at the moment with Are You OK Day and everything else that's going on in the world, especially with COVID. During the SAS experience, you actually openly spoke about your sad passing of your sister, and again, condolences to you and the family for that, mate. I know it was a while ago now, but you actually said that you felt as though your biggest regret is not sort of being there when she was doing it tough. What did you mean by that, and do you feel as though you could have done more?
What I've said before is everything is great in hindsight. You can sit back and look at things, and it's like you have those arguments and you go back in your head and it's like, oh, I could have won that argument if I said this or I said that. But yeah, it was a funny one because it had been going on for so long with my sister. I was very young when it all started, so I was completely oblivious to it. I was 11 when it kind of first kicked off, and it wasn't until I was sort of 17, 18, 19 that I started to clue on to what was going on. And by that stage, it was it was 7 years, 8 years after it had started, so a fair way into it. And I guess you couldn't really understand it or comprehend it. You don't really know what someone with mental health is actually going through because you're not in their head. And I'm not going to say one person who suffers from any form of mental health or any issues like that is the same as the next person, because it's not the same. I mean, again, I'm saying this from an outside point of view. I don't actually know, but I can't imagine that everyone is fighting their own or the same battle in their head as the next person. If they were, then I feel like it'd be easier to treat almost or get over. But yeah, I don't know. Our family, you tried the tough love situation, you tried the caring support situation, and I just tried to do everything for her to help her to get better. She got on a point where she was getting better, and unfortunately, her boyfriend at the time overdosed on a new drug. So that kind of started a new downward spiral. And it was just like, I mean, just part of life, I guess. And sometimes life just throws things at you to see if you can get over them. And Mum said it very well. She said that Jaimi was fighting demons in her head, and unfortunately the demons won. But yeah, like I said, hindsight's a great thing, and it's also a killer because you sit back and you look at all the minor things. And I mean, I lived with it every single day. She lived at home with Dad and I, and yeah, you see every single detail of it and every aspect. And not everyone saw that. Everyone will remember her as a very bright and bubbly person who, yeah, had some struggles in her time, but that's who she was. And that's how she will be remembered, is because she was just that bright, bubbly person. And, you know, like I said, living at home with it, it's hard when it's all the time. So you do get over it here and there. I think as a family, we did everything we possibly could for her to try and help her to get better. And unfortunately for her, it just wasn't enough in the end to get over what she was going through. I feel like our situation's no different to anyone else, other than ours is probably in the media and in the limelight a bit more. But there are families struggling with people with mental health and issues like that every single day, and our situation's no different. So it is a real problem. And I think the only thing I can say, again, this is just me, but the days might be bad, but there's always someone out there who's got it worse than you. And that's probably the only way I can look at it. And whether people want to take
fantastic motto, mate.
Or criticize me for saying that, they're going to take it as they will. But my hat goes off to everyone who is battling with it or dealing with it, whether it be themselves or a loved one or a family member. And because it's not easy. It's not easy. Yeah, like I said, it's a part of life, and life must go on sometimes. So yeah, Jaimi passed, and I got kind of criticized by the media for sort of moving on with my life and doing what I was doing straight afterwards. But I mean, that's who I am. I can't dwell on it forever. My life must go on. Family's closer than ever, and very fortunate to be, I don't know, all still here and healthy. So I mean, we'll miss her and whatnot. I got photos all around here that you can't see, but it's a part of life and everyone goes through it.
Yeah, well said. Absolutely brilliantly said there, Jett. And you're right, mates. I love what you just mentioned before. There is always someone that's doing it tough out there. And, you know, we all go through tough times. And, you know, with COVID hitting, I lost 4 jobs in a day, mate. But and I had to go and stack shelves for 12 months. But I didn't go and sort of whinge about it on social media, because there is people out there that are doing it tougher, and people that, you know, like pilots and that have to do the same kind of thing, and people in much worse situations than me with family and kids that don't have work at all. So, you know, like, it's absolutely a really good point, mate. You've answered that so well.
Yeah, no, well, thank you. I mean, I'm very fortunate being on the Sunshine Coast. We've never really experienced COVID too harshly down here, and being a lifeguard, the beaches were still open, so I was still able to go to work and do all that. So I've been very fortunate these past few years as well. So no, hats off again to yourself and everyone else who did lose jobs and had to fight their way through it. So it's been a very sort of few years, and yeah, look, I think everyone's looking forward to coming out the other side, that's for sure.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, one of the real positives is getting to speak to legends like yourself on Zoom, because Zoom's been unbelievable, mate, with my podcast. No. Like, I can chat to anyone around the world now just from their lounge rooms, and it's just the best. So
great way to keep in contact. Yeah, this is my gaming room, everyone. This is where I play COD and where I do my work, where I watch TV, and
No, it's the best. Jett Kenny, mate, thank you so much for joining us on Legends of Bevo today. It's been an absolute pleasure. We could talk for hours. Really enjoyed it, and keep up the great work. Enjoy sunny Queensland over there, mate, and hopefully get to meet you one day and have a beer.
Yeah, for sure. And thank you for having me. I mean, I've only been to Adelaide once, and it was dead flat when I went down and raced there. So actually, no, sorry, I've been to Adelaide twice. But South Australia anyway. But no, thanks for having me. And yeah, thank you.